Well, welcome back after lunch for those of us who are here, and for a night walk for those who are other places. So my contribution to this weekend is about reincarnation and karma, our past, present, and future roles. And for many people, death is a complete mystery, and the idea of reincarnation seems like a fantasy, a crazy idea. And they say no one has come back and told us how it is on the other side. And maybe there is not even any other side, people like to say. Martinus writes this in the beginning of a little book called The Principle of Reincarnation. And of course, this is what most of us experience, and many of us have seen dead bodies and think, well, this is the end. What was the point? So death is a mystery, but Martinus describes the process of reincarnation in various ways. He talks about what we experience as our growth from childhood to old age as a process of reincarnation, but not one that we notice very clearly. He says in the same book, where is the body you had as a baby now? He says an old person has actually experienced reincarnation or rebirth a good many times before he or she dies. But what we experience as reincarnation in this perspective is the reincarnation of all the cells and organs in our body. He says here, every minute there are cells and atoms that are born and die in our organism. So our organism actually undergoes a continuous process of transformation, and in the course of only a few months is almost totally renewed. You see on the right here a picture of skin cells, the various levels of various layers of skin, and we see the top layer here. They're dead cells, and we know that they dry and they flake off, and we get new skin. So the skin is constantly renewed. And Martinus describes that this is the same with our organs and with our cells. And I believe that physical materialistic science has shown that the cells that last the longest in our body are the nerve cells. As far as I understand, they take the longest time to regenerate. For a long time, I thought they didn't regenerate, but now one knows that they do regenerate, but they can take a long time. And the cells that are renewed the quickest, they're the blood cells, which is one of the reasons why blood transfusions work, because I don't know how many hours it is, but if you get someone else's blood, it creates a sort of basis for the incarnation of your own blood cells very, very quickly. So that's one reason why blood transformations work and are uncomplicated, where the replacement of organs is more complicated. So we are experiencing the principle of reincarnation all the time from we are born. The minute we are born, we begin to die, so to speak. The cells, the organs, and so on, they begin to die, but they begin to regenerate. So there's a constant process of death and rebirth going on at the microscopic level all the time. And this is a very, very smooth process. So we don't really notice that we have actually reincarnated many, many times in the course of a life. We gradually glide from being a baby to being a toddler to being a small child to being a teenager to being an adult to being an old person, and it all goes very, very smoothly. And then at one point, when we each reach the point where we die, as we call it, then we lose the whole body at one time. But up until that point, we have lost parts of the body, not all at the same time, but just in such a way that we always have a physical body. So we experience a kind of continuity in our day consciousness from being a baby we experience, I'm the same person I was as a baby, as a child, as a teenager, as an adult, as an older person, and so on. We experience this continuity, but this continuity is broken at the point of our death. But there are other beings that experience the principle of reincarnation in another way, where things are not so continuous. And he gives the example of some insects like butterflies, and I have a picture of one here. And here he describes 3 stages: the caterpillar stage, the chrysalis stage, and the butterfly stage. We know caterpillars, they crawl around all over the place. And then when they get to a certain stage in their evolution, they stop moving, and the outer shell of their bodies dries up. And this chrysalis body incarnates, so to speak. And the chrysalis, if it has eyes, I don't know if it has, but it can, theoretically at least, it can look back on the dead body of the caterpillar. And then later on, the chrysalis dries up, and the butterfly emerges from the chrysalis. And then we get this beautiful butterfly. And we see here 3 very, very different organisms. They look very different. And as it is, you know, if you had friends, and I mean, if this was us and we had to go through this process, our friends wouldn't recognize us. Like, you won't say, "Oh, I remember when you were a caterpillar," because the outer form is so different. So, but we are recognizable because our transformation from our early stages to mature stages is so smooth and unnoticeable, really. So he said theoretically the butterfly could attend the funeral of its chrysalis or its caterpillar, like its previous bodies. I mean, if we want to attend the funeral of our previous bodies, we just have to hoover the dry skin from our legs off the sofa. But it's a bit of a different principle. So, but in a similar way, our principle of renewal of life is interrupted, but it's interrupted just once. And that's the point we call death, where for some insects, this principle of renewal interrupts the day consciousness on the physical plane 3 times or twice. You have to go through these 3 stages. So we see an evolution in the process of reincarnation. Death is something that terrifies people a lot. They see it as something mysterious. They see the discarded body, the corpse. But what we don't see is the being emerging in a new form. We don't see this transition. There is, of course, some new research into near-death experiences. I've got 2 books here, one by Pim van Lommel called Consciousness Beyond Death, where he talks about non-local consciousness, and a slightly more recent book, After, by Bruce Grayson, an American, a psychiatrist who, it says here, a doctor explores what near-death experiences reveal about life and beyond. And what both of these writers and many others show that death is an illusion. There is experience of life outside of the body, like non-local consciousness. You can leave your dead body on the slab in the mortuary, and you can experience life. And if the circumstances are right, you can manage to come back and talk about it. And they have researched thousands upon thousands and thousands of cases. So the case for one life, the one life theory, is becoming weaker and weaker. There's a lot to support the idea of life after death. But normally we can only experience a person's consciousness through a physical body. And Martinus likens this to a radio, that we know from experience that radio waves are all around us. This room is full of radio waves. I can't see any of them. I'm quite sure they're there. If I get a radio and turn it on, I will be able to pick up different signals, and I just have to turn the dial to find Paris or Stockholm or London or whatever. So it's a matter of wavelengths, but we need an apparatus to capture those wavelengths. And in the same way, our physical organism is a kind of radio or an apparatus. He calls it a spacesuit, almost, to be a kind of vehicle for this non-physical consciousness, this I and all our talents and abilities that are manifest through the physical body. So we are not what we seem to be. We're not the physical body. We manifest ourselves through the physical body. And as we've seen, the physical body is not something stable. It's constantly being renewed and replaced. So past, present, and future roles. That was a subtitle for my presentation. Martinus talks about mortality or death being an illusion. And that was the book you read, Jeff, that started the whole thing for you. Death is an illusion. Here in the Fate of Mankind, Martinus writes, mankind believes itself capable of judging and analyzing everything within its present area of perception, while the reality is that on the continents of the earth, there is absolutely nothing that is what it seems to be to the physical senses. Yeah, I like that. So none of us are what we seem to be, and we seem to be mortal. We seem to have a birth point and a death point, and a life of a certain span in between. But that is very far from being the whole truth, according to Martinus. There's much more to us than is dreamt of in our philosophy, since Pernille's been quoting Shakespeare. So there is much more to life than just these 70 years and 10. So, and here in this symbol of Martinus, which is called the arcs of fate of the living being, we see the principle of reincarnation shown in a symbolic way. And we see here in the middle our present life. We see these two white lines, and the living being here as the white triangle with a white cross, and this violet color. So this is the present. This is our present incarnation. And it's in the animal kingdom. We see that from the orange color. But we have a past, he says. This is if we have this illusion that we live only one life, then we are limited by those two white lines. But Martinus says there's much more to life than that. We have a past, and here we have 1, 2, 3, 4 previous lives, and of course the symbol is the symbol is eternal, in going to the left and eternal to the right. So the yellow area symbolizes our past, and the green symbolizes our future. Mm-hmm. So this is the now, and we see that in the now we send out karma waves, and they can be pleasant or unpleasant. We can see there are some short ones. We send them out and they come back pretty quickly in this life, in this minute, tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, whatever. But there are also karma waves that first come back in the next life, or the next life again, or the next life again, or the next again, and so on. And he talks about particularly, he mentions in connection with the fate of the Jews, that their fate was the cumulative karma for, like, if I remember rightly, like 40, 50 lifetimes. Mm-hmm. So it was very, very intense, extremely intense. So, and we see that in this life, we are receiving karma, not only from this life, but we're receiving karma from our previous life, and from 2 lives ago, and 3 lives ago, and 4 lives ago, and beyond. So in this life, which he calls the now, we are in contact with the present, the past, and the future. And we meet our own past, as Anne and Pernille have talked about, in behavior from other people, especially the unpleasant aspects of other people's behavior. we can maybe meet our future in the people who inspire us and who are able to behave in a more loving way, or are more talented, or have solved some sort of mystery. And sometimes I can look at a violinist and say, how on earth did you do that? I mean, I've been struggling for years and I haven't got to that. And you can look at someone who just does it and it's no problem and think, wow, that's like an inspiration. Or you can see someone who tackles a really difficult situation and they do it just beautifully, and I say, how did they manage to keep that calm and be kind and when someone was being so horrible and so on. So we can meet many people who inspire us on very many levels. So that's our future. So here we see our eternal life. Everything we send out to us comes back to us. So in this life, we have sent out so much that can't come back to us in this life that we need future lives in order to experience them. So when we look at our past roles, I took this picture from William Blake, a drawing by William Blake, a squatted devil with young horns, just to illustrate one of our past roles. Martinus talks about us having been minerals and plants and animals, and then human beings, unfinished human beings. And he talks about the animals they kill in order to survive. It's a condition of life for them. But we are sort of intelligent animals. So we're like a human being with horns, like we see here, where we have developed our intelligence to be greater than our level of morality, our moral sense. And when that happens, he calls it devil consciousness. I was trying to find a good picture of a devil, and I like William Blake. But devil consciousness is when you, for example, think up ingenious ways of torturing people, or ingenious weapons that can wipe out whole cities at the touch of a button, and so on. It's really when you use intelligence, your ability to analyze situations in the service of the killing principle. And that, for most of us, is very much part of our past. There can be some traces of it left, of course. And that brings us to the present. In the present, we are what we can call sphinx beings. That means we are part animal and part human. I hope I don't upset anyone by saying that, but we're not fully human yet, I dare say. So that means that we have some aspects of our personality that are unfinished. We are perhaps greedy, selfish, egoistic, jealous. What else? We can feel bitterness, disappointment, anger, intolerance, all those so-called negative qualities, which were actually necessary for survival when we were real animals, when we were beasts of prey, and when attacking and killing other animals was a condition of our own life. We still have that in some form. So maybe we don't stick claws on someone, but we can slander them or gossip about them and stick our mental claws in them in that way. But we also have this humane side that is growing and growing and growing. And this is very much stimulated by the humane world religions, and not least by cosmic science, that shows that the only way to be happy, the only way to be healthy, is to love your neighbor as yourself, and to develop this human head so that humaneness fills our entire consciousness. So this is our present situation, where we are in a sort of daily struggle with the animal in our consciousness, maybe even the devil consciousness in our consciousness to some extent, and this growing humaneness, this wish to be more and more like a Christ being who can forgive any injury, in any insult. When you can hang from a cross, not be the slightest bit irritated. I think it takes a bit of time to get there. So, and our future role I have symbolized with this. It's a statue of Christ by the Danish sculptor Bertel Thorvaldsen. It's in the cathedral in Copenhagen, the Church of Our Lady, and it was this figure of Christ that Martinus saw came alive during his own experience of initiation. And of course, it's this Christ-like behavior that is our future. There's no way out of it. We have to become perfect, and we will become perfect, and it's totally guaranteed. And when it's guaranteed, it's because the law of karma works. And I'll get to that. The law of karma works. So when we do something that hurts other people, we will ourselves be hurt, and we will, from that, we will grow in empathy and neighborly love. So the idea is that we will all become Christ-like beings with Christ consciousness or cosmic consciousness. We will ourselves experience the solution to the mystery of life. Then we won't need Livets-bog or the Bible or any other spiritual teachings, because we will have the solution within ourselves. We'll have this direct contact with God. So we won't be in doubt about the solution to the mystery of life. So the journey there is a matter of evolution. And so we're looking at this journey from our past roles to our future roles. And we see here again this principle of reincarnation. You see these life after life after life, with the yellow squares in between symbolizing our stay in the spiritual worlds in between lives. This is the area that Pernilla showed in the symbol about life after death. And we see here this moral standard is colored. It's colored orange. It's the animal principle, the killing principle. And we see that this karma wave, dark karma wave, hits this living being who's symbolized here. We see a sword piercing his heart. And this being believes that, of course, this karma wave was the other person's fault, and answers in the same way. So it's like an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. And this way of reacting is perpetuated from life to life to life to life, and creates this world conflagration we see behind us, where the world is on fire. This is very much what we see now with the war in Ukraine and other places, and we see natural catastrophes and so on. And we see a belief in materialism, that we only have one life. But behind all this, the light does shine. There is a divine purpose with this darkness, and this is the experience of contrast, which I'll hopefully come back to. So, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, and that keeps us in the animal kingdom until this faculty of humaneness develops. So here again, we see this present life between the two lines, this violet life, and we see our past and we see our present, but we see a ladder evolution. So now we see that we progress from life to life. It's not just a monotonous series of the same. It's a progression. Like I had a voice teacher once who started every lesson by saying, life is improving by the minute. But this is a symbol of it, really. And sometimes it doesn't feel like an improvement, because we have some hard lessons to learn, but life is improving. We are going towards higher stages of evolution. And we see here again this principle of karma. Now this karma wave is orange, which symbolizes the killing principle. So we see that here the being sends out something dark. It could be he kills somebody, and then he himself is killed. It could be that he says something nasty about someone else, and someone else gossips about him or whatever. So this killing principle can be on very many levels. It can be the most severe torture, murder, and so on. It could also be just a little critical remark. And So that comes back in this life with the same force, more or less. But if the karma wave, for various reasons, waits to come back the next life or the next life again, then we can see that this flame, which is the faculty of humaneness, grows and develops. And it grows because we experience suffering. I mean, the point of the animal kingdom is it's a kingdom in our eternal life where it hurts to think wrongly, where it hurts to act wrongly. And when I say wrongly, I mean not in harmony with the law of neighborly love. So through this process of receiving what one has inflicted on others, one begins gradually to wake up and become more and more humane. So this humane faculty grows and grows. And ultimately, it starts to dissolve the returning karma. So here we see a situation where someone has sent out something very dark, and it comes back in a much milder form, because at this point you don't have the heart to hurt people in quite the same way as you did before. And if the karma wave waits long enough, we take this fourth life here, then your faculty of humaneness or compassion is so complete in that area that you have absolutely no ability to treat people like you did then. That makes you immune to the return of dark karma. And that's what the Bible calls the forgiveness of sins. And of course, there's no such thing as actual sin. It's more like ignorance. It's acting in ignorance. So in this simple explanation, Martinus explains the concept of sin from the Bible. It's just ignorance. So, and when this process is repeated often enough, then we respond to all darkness that we meet by love and understanding, saying, okay, someone's nasty to me. That just reminds me of how nasty I used to be to others. And it makes it easier to forgive the person and to understand that, okay, he's just a postman bringing back what I have sent out, and you can respond to this more and more with a loving response. So in this way, you gradually go from an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, to loving thy neighbor as thyself. So this is a progression. So we go from this past as a pure animal through stages of being a devil, of having devil consciousness, and then becoming a real human being like Christ that we see in the middle of the symbol.
Yeah.
So Anne talked about different kinds of fate. You listed very many different ways of experiencing life, and it can seem terribly, terribly unfair. And Martinus says here again in The Immortality of Living Beings, only through the recognition of the immortality of beings can the justice of their happy and unhappy fates be revealed. So one can say there will be no justice whatsoever if someone's born in a war zone. You think of pregnant women giving birth in the middle of a bombing attack in Ukraine and so on. I mean, what kind of way is that to be born? A friend of mine, she was actually born in an air raid shelter or the London Underground during the First World War. You know, what kind of a start is that to life? And other people are born in very happy circumstances with all the help the mother needs and all the help the baby needs and beautiful surroundings, clean and hygienic and warm and comfortable. So we get very different kinds of lives. And Martinus says, do we not see from birth an absolutely brutal difference between some beings' fate and that of others? And of course we see this, and we can feel it is very unjust. So we ask why? Why does he have all that and I don't have any of it, and so on? And we can actually feel rather jealous or resentful and feel life is very unfair, which is in itself a very unhealthy thought climate to live in. So again, Martinus says, if living beings had only their present physical life, there would be absolutely no justice whatsoever in existence. As long as a human being believes in this mortality, it will be impossible for him to find any meaning whatsoever in existence, and therefore in his perception of life. So, one can ask oneself, can one demonstrate immortality? Can we prove immortality? Of course, that's a very large question, and time is limited now, but he says here, by observing himself, the unprejudiced intellectual human being can find his way to his own immortal structure. This has already given rise to a special word in the language to express. Something fell out there. This word is I. So when we talk about I, no one has ever seen me, actually. You think you do, but what you see is my physical manifestation. But you never see me. And I never see you. I never see any of you. I only see your physical manifestations. But this I is there, and it's this I that is expressed through the body. And when you see someone who dies, then what has disappeared is this connection to an I, and this ability for an I to express itself through the body. So Martinus often looks to nature when he wants to prove something or demonstrate something, and he talks about the seasons and the cycles in nature. And here we see the same tree in the spring, the summer. Yeah, where's the justice in having a cough? I ask. Anyway, we have spring, summer, autumn, and winter. And these are 4 seasons that we're terribly familiar with. And we're not in any doubt when we get to winter that spring will come again, because we've experienced it so often. We can see these cycles. They're short enough for us to see them repeat day after day. We're also not very much in doubt that morning will be replaced by midday, will be replaced by the afternoon, will be replaced by evening and night, and there'll be a new morning and so on. These cycles are short enough so we experience them repeat themselves. And this is true of us, Martinus says. And here we see the principle of reincarnation connected to the seasons. So here we see at the top of the symbol, the black circle, which symbolizes midnight, the half black and half white, which symbolizes the morning, and the white one is midday, and the half white and black is the evening, and we have a new night, and so on. And this is this cycle, and the same is true for winter, spring, summer, autumn, and a new winter. And Martinus says this is also true of our physical lives, that we have the baby stage, which is winter, where all our talent kernels are latent, like the tree looks dead, it has no leaves and so on. But we know there are things in the tree that will grow, and it will bloom. So we have within us a whole lot of talent kernels or talent seeds that will grow and develop. So the baby is like a leafless tree in the winter. And we know that the baby will grow up and become a child and a mature person, and then an old person, and then die, and then become reborn, and the cycle will go on. So he compares our physical lives to the cycles of the seasons. I don't think I'll go more into that symbol now. And of course, we reach a point where in this physical life where we die, we have dealt with death, but we have to reincarnate. So how is that possible? And here we see what Martinus calls a symbol called the act of copulation, or God's spirit in the darkness. I was very doubtful about calling the symbol that in English, the act of copulation, because it sounds so animalistic, but he uses a very animal word. He says pangs acting, which is something we usually associate with animals. But I think he's stressing that human beings are still in the animal kingdom. So what we call the act of copulation or intercourse, we see here the man and the mother, the woman. And they are engaged in intercourse. We see this cross here with these rays of bliss, which in the best cases you can experience during sexual intercourse. We see the two beings are dominated by the energy of gravity that shows that they belong to the animal kingdom. It's quite a lot of feeling and intelligence and so on. Anyway, this sexual experience creates a sort of aura of bliss. And you see these two rays, it's two yellow rays leaving the being and going up and creating this common aura, a shared aura between the man and the woman, which the discarnated being up here can get onto the same wavelength as. So you have a being in the spiritual world that's looking for an opportunity to reincarnate. And then there's a man and a woman on the physical plane who have intercourse, and this being's fate happens to be connected to the fate of these beings. So we see that they're these sort of psychic threads, and the being incarnates. We see they wrap around the mother. So the being incarnates in the uterus of the mother and starts to grow, and 9 months later the baby appears. So reincarnation has happened. So yeah, I think that was my time is up. So that's all for now. Thank you.
Thank you.